All right, coming back with another mock draft reaction video. I find these interesting. I like doing them. So I made one about Mel Kiper. Now I'm doing a guy by the name of Anthony Treash, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He works at PFF. Figured this would be an interesting idea because, I like the guys over at PFF. I think they're pretty smart people. Not that Mel Kiper is an idiot, but, they kind of think more similarly to how I do, although I disagree at certain parts as well. Figured this could be fun to kind of maybe do a reaction to people I'm probably more going to align with more as opposed to others. So this is, again, the point of these things is to have fun with it. It's always fun. Let's get into it. So here we go. And as we go to 1-1 here, it's the obvious pick, but I think it's the right one. Aiden Hutchinson here. Maybe I'll try to zoom in a little bit, see if I can get a little bit bigger. I'm not sure how well it picks up on the screen, but yeah, Aiden Hutchinson 1-1 to Jacksonville. This makes sense to me. I think Aiden Hutchinson is very good. Again, we don't have to spend forever on it. Like the player a lot. Kayvon Thibodeaux at 2. This is also, again, something that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm a huge Kayvon Thibodeaux fan. I think that some of the criticisms are a bit odd. He's not as polished as Hutchinson, but I still like him, and the Lions would be getting a good player for several years if they go out and draft Kayvon Thibodeaux. So I have no issue with this one, whereas some other guys that they're drafting, there's bigger risk involved. So that's what I think. Number 3, Derek Stingley Jr. Again, I like this. I think that going out and getting a corner makes sense. Now, the one thing I would say is that the Lovie Smith defense doesn't put as much stress on corners as other defenses do. They play a ton of cover 2, traditionally. So that means that you don't have to worry about getting beat deep as much. So you can kind of be a little bit more aggressive, but that doesn't mean corners don't matter. So I'm a big corners matter a lot. I think that if you really like Stingley, go out and get him. I even liked his tape last year. A lot of people were saying he was a one-year wonder in 2019. I liked some other stuff that he did. So that's kind of where I'm at personally. Okay, couple of picks here, so we can do a few in a row. Kyle Hamilton at 4. I just don't like this. I just don't, especially with, this is a weird one where a lot of people are saying that they like the fit with Kyle Hamilton in the Robert Saleh defense. But the Robert Saleh defense, it's changed. It's not quite one thing, but it's at its most traditional sense is the Seattle cover 3, which we saw with Jamal Adams. It's not a great fit for a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who I kind of see as a Jamal Adams type. But again, that's just me. A lot of people like him a lot more than I do. So maybe I'm wrong. If everyone else feels one way and I feel a different way, I'm probably wrong. But that's just my opinion on it. Number 5, Sauce Gardner. Like this a lot as well. The Giants could use a corner, especially if they are going to, in fact, get rid of Bradbury. So really big fan of Sauce Gardner. He's worth a top 5 pick. So spending a top 5 pick on him makes sense to me. Number 6, Charles Cross. Again, like Cross a lot. Panthers desperately need a tackle. So desperately need offensive line help in general. So again, this makes sense. I think there's zero chance this happens. I think they take a quarterback because they need a quarterback, but this is probably the smart move for their team. Do this and just kind of punt on the rest of the draft because you have no other picks until like round 4 or whatever. So I like this move. I like Cross a lot as a player. The Giants here at number 7 don't like this one as much. Nakobe Dean, yeah, I don't love this, especially with some other really good players still on the board. He's not even my linebacker 1, so just feels like a bit of a reach. I think Dean is good. I like him. He's a first-round talent for sure, but I see him as kind of a later first-round talent. So getting him at number 7, it just feels like a reach. Now, the logic behind it, just reading what Anthony has to say, actually makes some sense because of right there, Wink Martindale. He's going to love a linebacker who can blitz. So the scheme fit works. Just feels like a bit of a reach for me. But yeah, I like the fit. He would help their team. He's a good player. So I get the logic behind it. Number 8, Desmond Ritter. So I'm surprised to see Desmond Ritter be quarterback 1. Not my quarterback 1, but again, quarterbacks are hard to evaluate. No one really knows. We're all just guessing when it comes to quarterbacks and a few other positions as well. So I'm rarely going to complain about a team taking a chance on a quarterback when you are a quarterback needy team. Go out, do what you got to do. And if he sucks, well, then you'll have a good pick next year. You can use that good pick on another quarterback. The sin is not, I think, the biggest sin you can make is not drafting a quarterback too highly. It's because you drafted a quarterback too highly, not being willing to move on from them, see Daniel Jones. That's kind of the way I view it, or at least take a plan B. Evan Neal with the Seahawks. Again, if they're not going to go quarterback, going offensive line here totally makes sense. They need to tackle desperately. So Evan Neal, I think totally like that. That's a great pick. Number 10 here, Jets getting George Karlaftis. I don't hate him. I mean, again, I don't know how much better I guess here's what I don't like about it. The whole goal for the Jets probably should be to get Zach Wilson better, right? Help out Zach Wilson. The receiving core wasn't great last year. It had some flashes, but it wasn't consistently good last year. I think they should use one of these picks on a wide receiver. Although, as I say this, the flip side is you can typically get good wide receivers in round 2. And just because you're drafting a wide receiver higher doesn't necessarily mean he's definitely going to be better. But I'd probably go wide receiver here. But I really like Karlaftis. I think top 10. I think he's worth a top 10 pick. And I think he would fit really well on that defense. So, again, I get the logic behind it, and you can get wide receivers in round 2. I wouldn't hate it if it happened, but I think maybe I'd be a little bit more optimistic if I'm a Jets fan. So, yeah, anyways, moving on to number 11. So the Commanders getting Garrett Wilson. Again, the Commanders are such an interesting team, really, where it's like, I don't know if I can think of a team that like isn't that great, but also has no real glaring hole. I guess you could argue they could use a better quarterback, but Wentz is fine. Like, what do they suck at? Like, they could maybe use another corner. So maybe they could go with McDuffie, who this mock draft has going one pick later. But I mean, I don't hate adding a wide receiver. Again, another position where I'm kind of like, yeah, take shots on them. Makes sense because they don't really need a wide receiver, but why not grab one? Why not be really good at that category? That makes sense to me. And then Trent McDuffie with the Vikings. Again, I feel like I've seen this getting mocked a few times now because it makes sense. The Vikings need a corner, so this would help. He can learn under Patrick Peterson. All that stuff makes sense. Then number 13, the Texans getting Jermaine Johnson. I've just never been a fan of. I guess I'm just not a huge fan of Jermaine Johnson because I don't think that he should be a top half of the draft pick. I don't think he had enough production to really justify that. His measurables are very good though, so he's kind of a developmental player. So I get all of that stuff. So again, for the Texans, who did they get with their number 3 overall pick again? They got scrolling up Derek Stingley. So Stingley and Johnson trying to improve that defense for Lovie Smith. Again, I don't hate him as a prospect. Just feels like a little bit of a reach. I think there's some better players on the board for me, but the Texans need everything. So there's no position of need because they need it all. The Ravens getting Akeem Ekwonu, who, I mean, yeah, this would be cool. I mean, again, it's kind of one of those things where it says it right here on the article. They might not need an offensive tackle, but getting him and moving him to guard is too good to ignore. Kind of agree with that. Like, it's best player available. It's not their biggest position of need, but he's a really good player, so go out and get him. Yeah, I like that. And then the Eagles getting Drake London. Yeah, also a big fan of this. I mean, they could really use someone to play opposite Devonta Smith. This would do that. Go out, get Drake London. Now you have a good wide receiver. They need more wide receiver help, so like this a lot. And then the Saints getting Chris Olave. They also need wide receiver help. So, oh wow, we got a wide receiver run with Jameson Williams. Now that's really fascinating, actually. I never really thought about the Chargers going wide receiver here, but I really like that, quite frankly. I think that's good. I mean, think about Jameson Williams, Mike Williams. So the Williamses would get a little bit confusing. And then, of course, Keenan Allen. And now you have 3 really good receivers with Justin Herbert throwing the football. That's how you win Super Bowls, quite frankly, I keep saying quite frankly, that's how you win Super Bowls, though, is by having a really good passing attack. Look at the last couple of Super Bowls that we've seen. Buccaneers, Chiefs, the two best pass, keep saying quite frankly, but what happened was, the 2 best passing attacks, the 2 best receiver / quarterback tandems, right? And then last year was the same thing. It was the Bengals passing attack and the Rams passing attack was the best in the NFC last year once the playoffs started. Because again, the Buccaneers early on were great, but then they got banged up. So I love that. I love that pick. I think that's great. Let's move on. Eagles getting Devon Lloyd. Like it. Really good player. They could use a linebacker. They don't need a linebacker, but they could use one. Big fan of it. And then the Saints getting Bernard Raymond. So getting, again, a wide receiver and tackle here. That seems to be the move with them with those 2 mid-first round picks. I still don't know why they made that trade, but we'll probably learn more about it once the draft happens. Maybe they're going to trade up. Who knows? All right, moving down now to 20, Malik Willis. This makes sense. Again, I feel like a lot of people have quarterback going 20. I probably, whenever I do my first mock draft, I'll probably have this as well. I really like Malik Willis. He's my quarterback number 1. So getting him here at number 20, you need a quarterback. Like I said, take chances on quarterbacks. It's the smart strategy here. Andrew Booth going to New England here at number 21. That's fascinating to me. Again, the Patriots need a corner. That's really what it comes down to. So I think a lot of people would have wide receiver there, but there was already that wide receiver run. So going out and getting, Andrew Booth, who maybe you feel like has more value, I get that. And same Green Bay getting wide receiver again. It's a position for need. Basically, you need a wide receiver here. And that's kind of why I didn't love the Davante Adams trade a little bit, is because you're probably going to see, you might have to trade up if you want to get a really good wide receiver. Like, they're probably not going to get one of the top tier guys, but at the same time, maybe you take several shots on certain guys and that can work out. So that's the hope there for Green Bay, I would think. So moving on here, Kair Elam, who I like a lot. Cardinals could use a corner. Big fan of that. Cowboys getting Devontae Wyatt, another guy who I like, and I like at this value. So fan of those picks, certainly. The Bills, okay, this is interesting because Kuiper had the same thing. Jahan Dotson going 25 to the Bills. Like I said, each time I make, kind of view the Bills and what they should do in the first round, I always get a luxury pick because they're so loaded at several spots. So not quite as high on Dotson as some other people are, but again, if you like him and have a first-round grade on him, I wouldn't be mad at this selection. Moving on here, Titans getting Sky Moore. I like that pick. That's smart. I didn't think about that at all. But yeah, I mean, he's someone who could fit that scheme really well. That's a good pick. I like that. Again, this guy has some pretty clever ones that I don't see a lot, but once I hear them, they make sense. And Sky Moore going to the Titans, kind of more of a slot guy, but has one on the outside at times. And so I think that with a lot of these crossing over the middle route type stuff that the Titans like to do, he will be really good at that stuff. So really like that one. And then the Buccaneers getting Jordan Davis. Yeah, this totally makes sense to me. I mean, Davis and Vita Vea next to each other, this checks out. And I also think this is the round where I would want to take Davis. I'd want, again, when I made a mock draft just on my phone, not for anything, just kind of, screwing around, I had the Bills taking Davis just, again, as kind of a luxury pick. And that's kind of what Tampa Bay is doing. They're not asking Davis to be this elite Vita Vea type because they already have a Vita Vea. They don't need two of those, although that would be pretty fun. They're just going to let him kind of play his role. And if he's better than that, great. Because for Davis, there is a bit of a low floor, high ceiling type. So, hey, let's just use him how we know he can use him. Let him be what we know he can be. And then if he hits that high ceiling, works out even better. So I like that pick. And this feels about right for me with Davis as well to fit in everything. Packers getting Boye Mafe, who I like. I think he's solid and it's a position of need. So I don't know how much I have more to add to that. But again, I get the logic for the Packers. They do have several needs. Edge is one of them because they lost to Darius Smith. So go out and get another edge. Makes sense. Chiefs could use a corner. I mean, Chiefs have a lot of different needs. So going out and getting Kyler Gordon there. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. And I don't have an issue with them getting Trayvon Walker here at 30. Now, again, Walker is someone who, like, I think Mel Kiper had a top 5 pick. Now this draft has as the 30th overall pick. 30th overall feels a lot better to me than 5th overall. He just does. You could make an argument. There's other guys they should go after, but you're gambling on the upside. Probably will take a couple of years, but it kind of seems like the Chiefs are a little bit of a rebuild. You're never going to fully rebuild with Mahomes, but it feels like they're playing for at least a couple of years from now, more so than now. So getting a developmental prospect isn't the worst thing in the world when you have a superstar quarterback and you're going to be competitive for the next decade. So I don't hate that pick at all. The Bengals getting Tyler Linderbaum. So this is interesting. I'm assuming this would then mean that what's his name? The guy from the Patriots would then just flip over from center to guard, and therefore you would, that's how you get your extra guard. Would really like this pick. I think Linderbaum's really good. I think he's the way that this article said it totally is what I think. Linderbaum is arguably a top 10 prospect, but the only problem is there's not a pressing need for a starting center across the league. That's exactly what I would say. I'm with you. This makes total sense. And then finally, number 32 here. That's interesting. Jalen Peter here. Maybe, again, that's an interesting pick. Maybe not the first guy I would have gone with here. I think this would be a good opportunity to go for quarterback because I believe he didn't have him going quarterback round 1. But I do like getting safeties around this spot anyways. Feels like you can get some pretty good safeties at this spot in the draft. So don't hate that at all. So yeah, as a whole, I thought it's a pretty good mock draft. Again, I'm always going to have some quibbles, some things I don't love, some things. But at the same time, what I really liked with this mock draft was it kind of gave me a few things that were interesting to me that I hadn't thought of. And once I heard it, I'm a bigger fan of it. So that's kind of the fun of doing all these different mock drafts is you can start to think about things in different ways. It is kind of a puzzle. And once something changes, that can view everyone else, have everything else fall differently. So yeah, good mock draft. I enjoyed that one. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.